Hello again, everybody. This is Dan Clouser, and welcome back to the Journey of My Mother's Son podcast. Yeah, I'm joined with Kim Sorrelle, who's an author, speaker, lover of people, and black licorice. And I want to dig into the whole black licorice thing here in a little while as well. But Kim, thanks for joining me today.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Looking forward to the conversation. But before we get started, just introduce yourself a little bit to the audience and who Kim is today in her own words.
Sure. Yeah. So I run a nonprofit organization. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a mother, a grandmother, and an author, speaker. Um, and I'm very passionate about my life now, very passionate about what I'm trying to do. And that is to spread the truth about love. That's me.
Love it. Absolutely love it. One thing we haven't mentioned is you are a cancer survivor. I want to talk a little bit about that. You and your husband were actually both diagnosed with cancer within a few weeks of each other. He sadly did not get through his battle with pancreatic cancer. You here are 10 plus years surviving and thriving now. So tell us a little bit about, that that journey, and that kind of led to your first book. And just, talk about what that whole experience was like and what then made it inspire you to write that first book.
Yeah, well, I got a phone call on a Friday afternoon. I had a mammogram and thought that they were crazy, that I didn't need to have a mammogram. I was 47 years old. I'd had a couple in my 40s, and there was no breast cancer in my family, and thought that I was wasting my time. But the mammogram led to an ultrasound that led to a biopsy, and still I was sure that there's no way it's cancer. There's just no way. And then on a Friday afternoon, I got a phone call saying that I had cancer, and I don't even remember what other words were said. I just was scared and didn't know what to do. And I wasn't able to call the doctor's office back because they called me at the end of the day. And I called my husband and told him, and somehow he was there. It felt like in a split second, even though had to drive home from work. And he did exactly what husbands should do. He just held me, and we just held each other and cried and didn't know what the future was going to hold. And so the next day I went to the bookstore, and I wanted to know, what am I going to go through? What is it going to be like? What's it going to feel like? What's going to happen? And are there choices to make, or do they just tell me what to do? I do it. I didn't know. But every book that was there at the time was either very depressing or very medical, and wasn't telling me what I needed to hear. So I started writing. It was great therapy for me. But also, I thought other people need to know what this is like. Women need to know what they're going to go through, or anybody with cancer needs to know, if they want to know. It's helpful to know. And so I started writing. Before I knew it, 5,000 people were reading my emails. But it's a crazy thing because there are choices you have to make. And how do you know you're making the right ones? Like, one of the choices I had to make was to remove one side or two. And I didn't know what to do. I had no idea. And we were sitting around the dinner table and talking about it with my kids. And one of my sons said, "Mom, would you get new siding on just half the house?" And I thought, good thinking, son. That makes sense. So I wouldn't get new siding on just half the house. So my decision was made. So then my husband, just a couple weeks after I was diagnosed, went to the doctor with stomach pain. And then 2 months later, went to the doctor with stomach pain. Both times he was told, take some Tums. You're just upset because of what your wife's going through. And then, though, they did decide to give him into a gastro guy. So he went to that appointment, and they told him the same thing. Just take some Tums. Well, a week after that, I was still recovering. I had to have a complete hysterectomy because of the kind of breast cancer I had. And so I was in bed recovering still from that, because I was also recovering from other surgeries. And so in pajamas watching Grey's Anatomy reruns and whatever. And I woke up, my husband was already awake and just not comfortable. And I said, well, that's it. Go to the ER. In the emergency room, they'll run a test, they'll do something. They're not going to just let you suffer, they'll do something there. And so he went, he drove himself to the emergency room. And I waited and waited and waited for a phone call. But my husband was a rule follower and it probably said no cell phone. So he had his cell phone turned off. Finally, my phone rang and he said, I guess they're going to keep me overnight. And I'm like, keep you overnight? Nobody stays overnight. Why would they keep you overnight? And this is a Friday and they're going to keep you overnight on a Friday. What is this about? So I put on real people clothes and got in my car, drove like a bat out of hell in my Vicodin induced state. And I was almost at the hospital when my phone rang again. And my husband said, I guess there's a spot on my liver. I'm like, spot on your liver? What is that? I just started bawling. I got to the hospital. I don't remember anything but running in and asking where he is and running back to where he was. And he was behind a curtain and I'm sobbing. And I whip back the curtain and he's just sitting there like nothing's going on, sitting on the edge of the gurney, no big deal. And I'm bawling. And he said, listen, I am not going to invite you out anymore if this is the way you're going to behave. And I said, listen, you are not allowed to be funny right now. This is serious stuff. So they did admit him and he was in the hospital for a few days as they ran more tests and blood work and whatever. And it takes a while sometimes to get the actual diagnosis. And so we finally got the diagnosis. And when we did, we knew what pancreatic cancer means. People don't survive it. I mean, you're hoping to live a little while, but it's also the most painful cancer, they say. And so we just prayed all the time. Immediately we prayed, Lord, either heal him like you did the blind and the deaf and the lame, or the ultimate healing of heaven, but please don't let him suffer. Yeah. And God was so true to that. Like God's grace was on us. We had a great 6 weeks together. He didn't suffer. At the very end, we had no idea it was going to be the end. And woke up in the morning and he was in pain. And so I called the hospice nurse to come over. She ran over and she was there. And I said, do I call my kids? What do I do? Oh, no. He's got lots of time. He's got lots of time. And I was holding him from behind. He was sitting on the edge of the bed and I didn't want him to fall off the bed because he was rocking because he was in so much pain. So I was holding him from behind and I could just feel his pain. I could just feel it. And I just whispered in his ear. I just said, baby, just go. And that was it. He took his last breath and was gone. And nobody dies that way. I mean, the whole telling him to go, but a lot of times people linger, and do suffer for a long time or linger in a comatose state for several days before their body gives up. And so it was incredible for him to just be gone that quick, not another breath, not another anything, just that was it. And man, it was hard. It was crazy having two cancer diagnoses at the same time.
Right.
But losing my husband was, his cancer was so much worse. And then to lose him, I was 47 years old. And I expected to be 105 and sitting on a porch on rockers and drinking lemonade, smiling at each other, or whatever it is we do at 105. And all of a sudden, 47, I'm alone. And I loved that guy. He was a wonderful man. And we were really good together. We had a great marriage. And so had to kind of reinvent things. So I was writing long answer to your short question. So I was writing that whole time, all through that, and I continued to write for a while. So I wrote for about a year total, and it's a book, Cry Until You Laugh, because that's what you have to do. You have to let people cry.
Yeah.
You have to be sad. I mean, who wouldn't be sad? Happy for him. No more pain, no bills. That's not so bad, to be in that place where he is. It's a wonderful place. Sad for me, but happy for him. And you have to give yourself permission to laugh again. Sometimes I think people think it's dishonoring, or
Right.
you're not mourning enough or something if you laugh, but it's okay to laugh again. You got to find the way.
Yeah. What was that process like for you to be able to get to a point where you could laugh again? 'Cause I know it's different for all of us, but from your personal journey.
Well, I think there were a couple things that were playing into how I dealt with it. One was I still had to deal with what was going on with me. And so that was part of it. Like, that consumed time and it consumed energy. And so it was like this distraction kind of in the middle of it. And so when I was ready to go back to work, when I was healthy and ready to go back and do something and not sure what I was going to do with this new life, I decided to become part-time bookkeeper to a nonprofit organization that my father and I had started 10 years before that. And so January 1, clean books. So I started, and 12 days later, there was an earthquake in Haiti that killed 200,000 people. So within 2 weeks, I was in Haiti. And then for the next several years, I was in Haiti at least part of the month, every single month for the next many years. And I really believe in serving. There's healing.
Yeah.
That you get outside yourself and you help somebody else. To me, that was the most healing thing I could have done.
I agree with that. And, something that was instilled in me as a young man, through my mom, was service and giving back and volunteering. And, that's something that we continue to do today in our travels as we, go to different areas and volunteer for a couple weeks. Right after we'd started this RV journey, we found ourselves down in Lake Charles in Sulphur, Louisiana, doing some volunteer work after the hurricanes had gone through there in 2020. And I told you before we started recording that we volunteered at a faith-based drug and alcohol rehabilitation center in Beaumont, Texas. So I can definitely relate to what you're saying about how service really is healing, and doing something for other people without anything being expected in return. So is that something that you had done even prior to this? I mean, you said that you and your dad started the organization, so I'm assuming some of that might have been passed down from your parents as well. So, um, was being of service to others something that you did even before the cancer battle, or something you discovered as you were going through that?
Yeah, no, it's something I've done my whole life. Actually, it was passed down from my parents for sure, and how important it is to help people. And they help people. I saw them help people, individuals that were down on their luck, or somebody that needed something. My whole life, I saw my parents help people. They were very generous, and we were always kind of expected to, but I always wanted to. So it was great. I loved when I was in middle school going to a home for old folks home, we used to call it back in the day, and just sitting and talking to people that didn't have anybody who ever came and sat and talked with them, and getting to know people. So service can kind of be anything, right? It's just getting outside yourself and doing something for someone, whatever it is.
Yeah, and it's always amazing how you go into that, you know thinking that you're the giver, and you are, but as it turns out, you actually end up receiving, almost as much as you've given, if not more, in many
Right.
cases.
Right.
And the feeling that goes with that is pretty special. And even as an author, you know, um, part of that was you wanting to give back and serve others who might be going, you know, through that same thing that you were going through at that time. As you were and as you were writing the book, I mean, you were in the heat of it. Um, so, you know, you said it was kind of therapeutic for you. Um, what was that process like? Still not really knowing what the outcome was going to be for you, but to continue to, write and use that as therapy for yourself and then hopefully others down the road.
Yeah, well, what I was finding is, it was 13 years ago, and so it was email, is was the way to to get it out there, and I was getting such incredible, wonderful support and response from all over the world, really, and so I would write when I had something to write about, when I felt like writing or needed to write, either way, and, um so it wasn't, grueling. I know with a lot of authors, it can be tough. You wanna write that novel, and how do you find the time, and you gotta be disciplined and whatever, but this didn't take me any discipline. It was something I really needed to do.
Yeah. And then you've just recently, not quite a year ago yet, released your second book, Love Is. Tell me a little bit about, what that book's all about. What was the inspiration, behind wanting to get that out, and what that process was like for you.
Yeah, well, there were really 2 inspirations. First of all, I questioned love. I wanted to know what love really was, and was I doing it right, and did I do it right with my husband, and what is it really, because there seems to be this mystery around love, what it really is. And also, in John it says that God is love. Not that God loves, but God is love. So love is something you can be. Love is something that you are. And so if you, instead of WWJD, what would Jesus do? Answer the question, WWLD, what would love do? You're going to make the right decisions, right? Do the right thing. And so I thought, well, but I need to know what love is to be able to do that. And I need to know what love is because I don't know right now. And so I decided I would dedicate a full year to search for the true meaning of love. And most of the time I was in Haiti. I took the well-known passage, love is patient, love is kind, does not envy, does not boast, and decided I would take one word a month and figure out what is love that is patient, what is love that is kind. And it blew my mind. It took me longer than a year because there are 14 is's and isn't of love in that passage. So it took me longer than a year, but the things that I found out about love are things that I never had heard ever before, and realized that there is a lot of things done in the name of love that are not love, or said in the name of love that are not love. And it's amazing when you understand it entirely. It is the greatest thing. Love is the greatest thing. When you love, when you know how to love, when you know what love is.
Yeah, I love that. That's very, very important, um, to kind of establish that and go through and break that down. So, um, yeah, that's pretty powerful for sure. What, um, moving forward, um, well, let me back up a second. So, had you done a lot of writing, prior to the first book? Is it something you kind of aspired to do down the road, or was it something that through that process is when you really started to dig deep into your writing?
I always liked to write, but never really thought about writing a book. And but I wrote some articles here and there and whatever. But I was busy with lots of kids and work and whatever, and just never seemed to have time to really do it. But wrote a little bit before that.
Yeah. Any plans for additional books coming out yet, or that's still on
Yes.
the? Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah. I'm
what do you
actually
have on tap?
yeah, I'm co-authoring a book right now on grief with a woman that I met who's absolutely incredible. And so I'm very excited about that. And I'm also writing Love is for Kids.
Mm. So will that be like an actual illustrated children's book, or is it more of a book
A
for?
chapter book. I'm I'm hoping to get both to do both.
Okay, cool, very cool. Um, so I got to go back to my original intro of you, and something that you put. It seems like just about everywhere is the lover of black licorice, and just curious to know as to know what that's all about, and why you have it on your website and in your profiles and that sort of stuff.
Well, I don't know a lot of people that like black licorice.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
See? So most people, it seems, are not. But I am. My godmother, my great aunt Rita, was always had in her pantry black licorice, and I loved it. I don't know when I started eating it if I was 2 or 3, and that's why I acquired a taste, or I don't know why, but it was just always a thing. And I always remember Aunt Rita, who I adored, every time I eat black licorice, and it's just one of those things that people don't like often for whatever reason. It's delicious. People should give it another try. It's wonderful.
That's funny. That's funny. Um, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you'd like to bring up to the audience or listeners?
Well, I would just say that I did your homework for you. I lived this 14 months, found out incredible things about love that will change your life. They'll change your life and can change the world. And I did it. So in my book, I start out each chapter with what I think it's going to be, and then I tell the story of what brings me to the truth and how to apply it to life, how I applied it to my own life. And I was in Haiti. So it was a little crazy. I was chased by a motorcycle gang. I got lost on a mile-high mountain with a medical student in the dark. I slept outside with tarantulas and snakes and chupacabras or whatever there is in Haiti. So there was some crazy stuff that happened that brought me to these incredible realizations. And I just know that it changes lives. I've gotten lots of feedback already, and marriages that were at the end, and that it's changed, but also families with adult children that are doing it together, meeting on Zoom once a month, reading a chapter a month, and then discussing it all together. There's small groups doing it. There's people in corporate settings buying it for everyone on their staff, and then they have a monthly meeting, because love is universal. It's everywhere, and it's who you can be. And if you think about the people in your life that you want to be around, what is it that makes them different?
Right.
Probably the love that they show.
Yeah.
That's probably what's so attractive about them, that you want to be with them. So anyway, Love is available, and you can live the 14 months and discover it yourself, or you can buy the book, and I really am passionate about it and about changing the world.
Love that. So, how can they find you on the internet? How can they find the book? Um, again, if they want to engage you, reach out to you, where can they find Kim at?
So kimsorrelle.com is my website, but it's a little obnoxious because I'm literally the only Kim Sorrelle in the world spelled my way. because there are way too many letters. There are 2 R's, 2 E's, 2 L's, Sorrelle. Who could remember that? So you can also get to my website, just loveis.info. Loveis.info. There's information there. So loveis.info. And the book is available on my website, but it's also available on Amazon, it's in brick and mortar stores, Barnes and Noble, places like that. But it's available at basically every bookseller online. And Love Is, hopefully, is a easy thing to remember, an easy title to remember. And that's what it's about. It's what love is.
Awesome. So, Kim, that brings me to my final question. And as you know, the subtitle of the podcast is Many Little People in Many Little Places, which comes from the opening lyrics of a Michael Franti song, Gloria, which go, when many little people in many little places do many little things, then the whole world changes. What's one of the little things that Kim does on a daily basis to make the world a little bit better place?
I I live love. I live love. So people I come in contact with, because I live love, I'm pretty open and aware, and can see if somebody needs a hug, a pat on the back, some groceries, whatever it is. I just try to stay aware of the people around me and what they need.
That's a great answer. Kim, I really appreciate you taking the time to get on the show and talk to me a little bit. It's a lot of fun. Folks out there listening, be sure to check out my other podcasts and blogs at journeymymotherson.com or danclouser.com. While you're there, pick up a copy of my most recent book, The Journey of My Mother's Son, Volume 1. Kim, thanks again for the time. Really appreciate the conversation.
Well, thank you so much. And I love your podcast. Everyone should listen to it. I love your journey. I love your story. It's fabulous, and you're fabulous.
Thank you. Really appreciate that.